present here and now. And in the awareness of God's presence, let us pray. Father, Mother, God, we give thanks for this opportunity to just be open. No requirement, no objective, just to allow that which is to arise within us to arise. That which is to be released within us to be released. Breathing in and breathing out in this sacred exchange of life energy. We give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. Down time's rabbit hole. We're going to be talking about time today. But before I get into the gist of the talk, I want to show you something. We have a monthly ministers' luncheon, and for the last at least dozen years, and maybe the last 15 years, as long as I've been attending, there has been discussion about, we've got in these various ministries, we've got some interesting things going on. And certainly there is benefit to making that known. Well, we have coming up with Natural Awakenings magazine, we have an ad for the Christmas issue, and it looks like this: let there be light, celebrate the light of Christ's Spirit as demonstrated by Jesus. Open your heart this Christmas to the awareness of the birth of that light within each of us. So, yes, I know I had to use Troy's picture in the ad. But this ad is going out to 20,000 issues and supposedly 50,000 readers from Longmont to Castle Rock. And we are pointing the ad respondent not to a particular ministry, but rather to Unity of Colorado website. And the Unity of Colorado website looks like this. It allows the ad respondent to find the closest ministry to them, click on the name, get a profile of those ministries to allow them to decide which ministries they want to investigate. But this is not to say that you all should investigate other ministries. But down here in the corner of the page, upcoming Unity events. When you scroll down on that, you'll see events from each of the participating ministries. Date, time, click on it, you'll get, or mouse over it, you'll get a thumbnail description. Click on it, you'll get a full description of the event, okay? So bookmark unityofcolorado.org in your browser, because there are just a wonderful spectrum of events that are happening at other Unity ministries around town. So anyway, there's also, at the top you'll see our gifts to you. There are some tools in there, some documents that are processes that you could use. We're getting more and more up. This actually is not live. Well, it's live. I mean, you can get to it. But all of the contributions from the various ministries are not going to be in there until the ad hits. Hopefully they're going to be in there before. I'm trying to stimulate them to get those things in, get their profile pages developed and so on. But this calendar and our gifts to you will be an ongoing, evolving part of this site. So right now there's a gratitude journal that I'm going to be passing out next week. but there's also a 1-year gratitude journal. You can set up any start date, and it'll print out the next 53 weeks for you in either loose leaf or booklet form. There's my ebook up there, Joy, A Simple Choice, and there's also a heart space meditation that is going to be up there shortly, as soon as there's some tweaking done. So anyway, I wanted you to be aware of this because it is a great resource for you to find out all of the things that are happening elsewhere. Okay? All right. So, down Time's rabbit hole. We've been talking about 7 lessons of chaos. And also I'm aware of the time the Broncos are going to be kicking off here in 20 minutes. So I am conscious of the time. Patrick made sure that I was. The 7 lessons of chaos, which we've been exploring over the course of the last several weeks, talks about time as a fractal entity. That is, that we think of time as being seconds and minutes and hours. Well, how many of you listened to Radio Lab yesterday on NPR? Did you? Oh, good. So you can't check the facts of what I'm going to tell you. There was a discussion about a Harvard professor, a physics professor, of course it's had to be physics, right? A Harvard physics professor that had an experiment where she cooled about 10 million sodium atoms, held them in a magnetic field, and cooled them to 3 billionths of a degree from absolute zero. That is to say, these atoms were virtually not moving, even at the submicroscopic scale. Then she took a pulse, a single photon, coherent photon, and fired it into that mass of atoms. And light traveled 186,000 miles per second, right? It got to this cloud of sodium atoms, which was about 1/100th of a millimeter in diameter. And when it hit that cloud of sodium atoms, the light slowed to 15 miles per hour. The photon slowed to 15 miles per hour. Now, she was able to actually change the consistency of this cloud to cause it to have a more dense molasses-like characteristic, not really, but compared to, that caused the photon to stop. She literally froze a photon in this cloud of atoms. And then she changed the characteristics back so that the photon proceeded at 15 miles per hour through this 1/100th of a millimeter of diameter. And upon exiting, it immediately became 186,000 miles per second. Okay? So, what am I getting to here? I'm talking about time. Time in a unbelievable, an incredibly short period where processes are real. Processes take place. That there is, in fact, things that happen in trillionths of a second. That light passing through that cloud of sodium atoms. And she was able to control the process at that level. Well, we think of days and months and days and minutes and hours and seconds, and we say, oh, well, that's time. And we think, well, time is fixed. You know, I start here in my day. I have 8 hours before I take a lunch break, and then I have a lunch break, and then I go to the bar for 3 hours, and then I come home, okay? And so that's my day. I know 8 hours and an hour and 3 hours, and so I can plan my day. Well, so I put this down on my day timer, and I rely upon my day timer to define what my life is going to be like, right? Because I know that my day consists of minutes and seconds and hours and so on. And we get stuck in this. Well, there is a Polynesian people that when they look at their day, there are two significant periods in their day. There is sunrise and sunset. And the reason that those are significant, not because the light appears and then it disappears, but rather it is during those times when fishing is the most effective. And so they will launch as dawn approaches. They'll do their fishing for the hour or so, and then at the end of the day, they will launch again and do their fishing for an hour or so. But they regard that hour, as we consider it to be 60 minutes, they regard that as several hours, okay? They're not equating hour for hour, but they're saying that during this, what we consider to be an hour, there are so many things that need to be done, so many things that follow one and the other, that they have demarked those, what we consider an hour, to be 3 or 4 significant units. But during the day, their hours, these significant units, are more like an hour and a half, maybe approaching 2 hours, because the sun is high, there's not much work going on, they just kind of hang out. So here we have a society that does not have a consistent, relative to the Western tradition, a consistent set of hours. But to ask them, what is your significant period of time? And they may say it's an hour, but to them, their 3 hours or 4 hours in what we would consider that time straddling sunup and that time straddling sundown are the same length as those longer hours during the day. Why? Because the processes that are involved in their time at dusk and dawn are as significant as the processes that occur in the longer time during the day. Now, why do I bring this up? Because when we go to work in the morning and we have a staff meeting, and then we have time to make customer calls, and then we have lunch, and then we come back and we make more customer calls, and we end the day with some kind of a meeting with our manager or with our subordinates to say what happened today, we have a very consistent structure. And we take that structure home with us. We go home, we have dinner from 6 to 6:45. We have time that, we try to make it home by 5:30 so we catch the evening news, but if we don't catch the evening news, we've DVR'd it anyway, so we'll watch that after dinner. And for sure, we'll DVR all of the programs in the evening because we want to save time and zip through the commercials and just get the meat of the program. I know that's what I do with football game. I don't like the commercials. So I DVR the game and I watch it at night. And then I can get a 3.5-hour game down to about 2 hours and 5 minutes. 2 hours, not 6 minutes, 2 hours and 5 minutes. Okay, so we bring this structure of time into our personal space, and then we say, oh gosh, I really wasted that hour. Oh gosh, I'm going to treat time like a commodity. I'm going to trade time. I'm going to trade this time for that time, right? I'm going to save time. I'm going to waste time. It's not a commodity. We can't save time. We each have the same amount of these seconds during the day, right? We have, for each of us, the same duration. The question is, how full is our time? The Western tradition and the Eastern tradition have different approaches to time. In the West, we think of time as very linear. It is strung out in a taut string, and we advance along that string in equal steps. Well, in the Eastern tradition, that's not the case. Time is cyclical. And in that cyclical time, there is a greater appreciation for patience. In the Native American tradition, patience is an important characteristic because patience, it is a recognition that things unfold in their respective time. For those of you who have taught Native American students, you probably have recognized, and maybe have even been warned, that to impose the Western concept of time on the Native American student is going to impose a stress that may not be necessary, because the Native American tradition looks upon time as a very organic and sacred process, that it will unfold, that the time will evolve as it is supposed to. And to impose our hour-long classes, our 50-minute tests, our 25-minute discussions, and our 10-minute dyads on the Native American student who brings that Native American tradition to the classroom creates a stress that that hampers their learning. Okay, so we have in our life, we have a natural flow of time. Many of you who have received emails from me at night and have noticed the time that those emails are sent, they're sometimes sent at 1:30 or 2 a.m. And that, my excuse is, that's why they are so incoherent as they are. But my workday is different now than it used to be, because I'm starting to get into a more natural rhythm. My workday does not start at 8 a.m. That's about the time when I pop open one eyelid to see what time it is so that I can go back to sleep. My workday typically starts in the 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning. But then late afternoon, mid-afternoon, I'll take, not a siesta, but I'll just take time off. I'll do something different. And then I'll come back in, and in the evening I'll go back to work. And I'll sometimes work 6 or 7 hours in the evening. But that is a natural rhythm that I have come into. And I would like you to look at what your natural rhythms are. I'd like you to consider how your day is structured and whether or not it is a natural reflection of your mental cycle, of your body cycle, or it is an imposition of that Western structure that we have grown up with. There is, I've already covered that. In Ecclesiastes, this comes out of about 300 BCE when this was written. Maybe it was 400. Anyway, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. This is not intended, I don't think, to itemize those things that you can use time for. And I don't think it is defining in any way, shape, or form that this is the time for war and this is the time for peace, but rather it is to make apparent that we have all kinds of things that go on in our lives. The Zen artist will sit for sometimes hours, maybe days, meditating in front of a blank piece of paper. And at the appropriate time, we'll pick up a brush, wet the tip, and with a few well-controlled strokes, create a very powerful, moving work of art. How long did the artist take to make that painting? 1 minute and 30 seconds? Some would argue a lifetime. That piece of art is the culmination of that artist's life to that point in time. I would suggest to you that indeed we each have that culminating expression in this particular time. And that culminating expression may in fact be an accumulation of our life and an expression of our consciousness at that particular point in time. And our consciousness is absolutely dependent upon our life. That is, our consciousness here in this particular moment is the culmination of all that we have experienced, all that we have learned, all that we have emoted, all of those things that we have come into our awareness is being expressed right here and now. Just as what I am speaking is the culmination of my experience, how you hear what I am speaking is the culmination of your experience. So you may or may not connect with what I am saying, and that's absolutely wonderful, whatever it is. But the point is that each and every one of us has our own experience with time. And if we, in fact, can move into an awareness of how we relate to that, our lives can be more full. Our time can be more fulfilling. We talk about goal setting. And goal setting is about defining what is to be accomplished at a particular point in time. And when we define a goal, when we set a goal, we're literally setting it in concrete. I mean, that's what we're at least expressing. We may not consider it to be that, but we are at least using words that is setting it in concrete. And I would like to introduce you to something that, frankly, I've had difficulty coming to a phrase on. But I'm going to use, instead of goal setting, I'd like you to think about goal envisioning. And the difference between goal setting and goal envisioning is that goal setting is saying, this is my objective, and whatever happens here in my life, I'm going to return my vision to this particular pylon that I set at some point in my future, and I want to move towards it, okay? So while you may not consider goal setting to be that extreme, I'm using that for illustration. Goal envisioning is more fluid, it's more dynamic, it's more relating to the greater perspective. A goal setting that I'm going to accomplish, I'm going to finish this report at this particular point in time, is saying, okay, I know what the objectives are for this. I know that that is needed at that point in time. A goal envisioned would be to convey information to the proper sources at a time when it is needed by them. Okay? So it's not as defined, but rather is more fluid. And I'd like to introduce you then to this concept of considering goal envisioning. Rather than expectations that are associated with goal setting, let there be anticipations associated with your goal envisioning. The expectation is an attachment to outcome. The anticipation does not have that attachment to outcome. So there is, in the goal setting, there is the outcome that if it is fulfilled, we're satisfied. If it's not fulfilled, we're disappointed. But it is whether or not we achieve that particular point in time with the necessary results, that determines how we evaluate our efforts. Goal envisioning and the associated anticipation can be much more fulfilling even if the goal is not met. In business, it may take a long time for this concept of goal envisioning to take hold. Goal setting is the mark by which managers are evaluated, by which employees are evaluated, by which small businesses achieve their necessary objectives. Goal envisioning can be something that you use on a personal basis, that there is a time to plant and to time to pluck up what is planted. It is about letting your personal lives be more oriented to your personal clock and not to be defined by the days, the months, and the years. It's about personal time management that's really not time management, but rather it is time unfoldment. It is, as the Native Americans would consider, that it will come about as it is supposed to. It will come about in a sacred unfolding. It's an interesting and different perspective on time that can empower us, can allow us to have those silent times and not feel like we're wasting time, to have those times of boredom and not demand that we be entertained, to allow those times when we are interacting with someone to stretch out in such a way that that time becomes very full because we have connected at a heart level with that other person, not because we have an objective of that interaction, but we experience the energy of that interaction. It's about shifting our perspective and allowing the chaos which our lives are to be responded to in a more organic, fluid, and fulfilling manner. And indeed, we have a choice as to how we're going to approach this. And the choice is yours. But first, just explore this idea of goal anticipation, goal envisioning, rather than goal setting, and see how it works. As we come into the awareness of our breath in this moment, let us consider the Zen artist. As the Zen artist approaches the subject, as we approach our life circumstances, let us not be rushed by the watch or by the calendar. But let us engage the practice of letting the silence enfold us. Letting just the pure being of awareness embrace us. Let us be willing to be patient in the face of our unfolding lives. Letting go of the judgment of what is good, what is bad, based upon its advancing to our predefined objectives. Letting go of that, and instead allowing the unfolding of our lives to be rich, fragrant, delightful, and harmonizing. Let us allow patience to be our modus operandi. Patience. Let's wait and see. Let's be silent and be aware. And in this silence and awareness, let us return to this time and place, sharing the words of the Lord's Prayer.